talking to myself for like past, I don't know, 40 minutes. There's a lot of fucking gems that I said. Really, I just wish I was recording the whole time, but the second I turn a camera on, now I know I'm being observed by something. So the train of thought that I enter is now different because there's a psychic tension being built between my screen, my device, and the brain associations that I have with recording myself. So I don't know how this video will transpire. I feel like digital devices only further obscure the truth from being said. As if it was already so fucking difficult to actually get the truth out without a digital device involved, right? Because it is difficult. But anyway, I was thinking about a concept just now, just this second, about if I wanted something, I would have it right now. And what I was specifically thinking about was like my life personally. Like there was a point in life where I had millions of dollars. Oh, what's up, Coyote? He didn't want to stop for me. Why is he running so fast? Anyway, there was a point in life where I had millions of dollars. And I'm thinking to myself, if I wanted it, I would still have it. And like that statement itself can be true, but at the same time, can that statement be indefinitely true? Because what about tomorrow? If I want it tomorrow, will I have it tomorrow? Probably not, because it does not align with the rules of reality. That's why Reality Transurfing is such an interesting book. One of its principles is that reality constantly lags behind your impositions that are inside of you. So I guess that law makes sense within the terminology of reality transurfing. But whenever I think about like the statement itself, if I wanted something, I would still have it. It could be true, because the points that you did have those things, you did want them. That's why you had them. If you didn't want them, you wouldn't have them. Whether the want is conscious, subconscious, or unconscious doesn't matter. But the matter of the fact is, you wanted it, so therefore you had it. I don't know. It's just interesting to think about, like in what occasions or how true that statement holds itself to be, and at what moments of time is that statement true. Because if we look at it retroactively, as if I'm looking into the past, it's true because I wanted it, therefore I had it. Now if I'm looking at the now, or whatever I can conceptualize of the now, there are certain settings that I had that I no longer have. Therefore, that means I don't want these things. That's just the way I think about it. If I'm trying to think of it from very simple linear logic, that's what it turns out to be. But then when you think about the future and our conceptualization of the future, and you put it into a very myopic tiny window of, let's say, 1 week, there's certain wants and desires that you have that, can you materialize it in 1 week, Conceptually, yes. But, where is that thread of time where it becomes a real thought, a far away possibility of real, or a completely impossible? I know in Reality Transurfing, the book, Vadim Zeland talks about frames and how you put frames in your mind, or frames. I don't like the term frames. I think they use the term frames or slides, but I just call it a vision. You have light visions in your mind of, you imagine them. You imagine a certain type of existence, and you hold it lightly in your mind, and then you let it go. But you hold it lightly in your mind. You meditate on it for like a moment, right? Like even right now I'm walking, I can meditate on a vision very lightly. And it's like an important way of materializing things. It's a version of manifestation, but with less focus and concentration, because there's other rules inside reality transurfing that would be paradoxical to its principles. Because there's another principle in reality transurfing that mentions how you should lower importance, because the more importance you place into things, the more likely it is for that thing not to materialize itself. So if you have a certain vision in mind, or a slide, or a frame of a certain type of reality that you want, and you place too much importance into that frame, and chances are that frame won't happen. And this is again under the laws of reality transurfing. So yeah, it's important to hold them lightly, those visions and frames. And where was I getting at with this? Why did I bring this up? Oh yeah, I was gonna say this. Well, it ties into the whole wanting thing, but I was gonna say this. In order for you to hold a frame, right? Like, let's say I want to imagine me driving a Lamborghini. Hypothetically speaking, the most materialist bullshit example I can bring. I'm sorry, guys. But let's say a Lamborghini, right? First, I have to know what a Lamborghini is. And how do you know? Should you first see this object in real life? Because you can't imagine a frame, slide, or vision without actually knowing what it consists of. At least, so I believe this. Someone prove me wrong. But if I'm trying to imagine a certain reality, I must know what those things are inside that reality. And I guess the only way of direct knowing is through lived experience or lived observations. If I see someone else driving a Lamborghini, then I could probably imagine myself in one, because I now know what a Lamborghini is and I know what it looks like for someone to be driving one. But of course, I don't know what it looks like, or I don't know what it feels like to be in one. But let's say somebody let me test drive a Lamborghini. Now I know what it feels like to sit in a Lamborghini that's not mine and drive it. So I know that feeling, but I still don't know what the feeling is of owning one, right? But it goes back to my point that I can still imagine all these things now, because I have some form of direct knowing that I've experienced these things. So that's the only way you can truly manifest, quote unquote manifest. I don't even like using the word manifest. Well, not that I don't like it, but it's just been used so much. I like just using the term visionizing or whatever, visualizing. But yeah, you can't visualize something if you haven't had any exposure to it in some capacity. But I could be wrong, right? Because maybe I'm not thinking of it at this second, but this is all off the rip. But if how does your imagination work? I talked about these things in my previous videos, but the imagination, when you imagine something, where is this fucking image coming from? Do you question this? Is this image coming from all your exposure to this material earth from childhood? And your mind begins to put new forms together of existing forms. Let me put it like this. Let's say throughout your first 5 years of existence, you've observed the world, but you haven't been fully conscious. Or forget the 5 years example. Let's say you have been alive for 20 years, right? And I've seen trees, I've seen beaches, I've seen millions of things, right? When the mind imagines something new, could it perhaps be like an amalgamation and concoction of everything that you've experienced, somehow just materializing itself in your consciousness against your will? And it's like a new form? I didn't explain that well, man. I might need to write this down before I talk about it. I hope maybe one person understood what I was trying to say there. Give me a sec. Let me see if I can think of a better way to explain that thought that I just had. Okay, let's slow down. Let's go back to the imagination thing. Where the fuck is my imagination coming from? It can't simply only be lived experiences, because that wouldn't explain dreams, and I know that Carl Jung talks about general consciousness, general unconscious, general subconscious. I believe in these things. I think these things are true. I think these things are 100% true, because it's like a mystical intertwinement of everything, and it's a good way of measuring what's possible. I don't completely dismiss the idea of either of those three things existing. And it would explain some things about the imagination, and it also would explain some things about how the imagination comes to fruition. So that's that. That should be a separate video, because I think that's way more complicated than what I'm talking about, right? Or I guess it does tie into what I'm talking about right now, but it just makes it a little more fucking harder for me to talk about off the rip right now. So let's go back to the whole imagination thing. Where does imagination come from? So bits and pieces of imagination come from lived experiences, I would say. Of course. You know, if you get hurt, you can imagine being hurt again, right? Or if you see someone get hurt through your observation and translation of those events with your eyes and ears, then you can imagine that same thing happening to you. You can. I mean, I don't see why you shouldn't be able to. If you observe it, or if you're an observer, you should be able to observe everything within yourself at the same time. Everything you see external can happen in the internal. Everything external from you can happen to you. So that portion of the imagination, I can wrap my head around with this logic to understand. But, you know, what about imagining things that either you haven't... See, no, you can't imagine something. I guess I'm really begging an interesting question here. Is it possible to imagine something not observable? Like, can you imagine things that haven't been observed by you? How is it possible? Because even if we break this down further, right? Like, let's say I'm imagining sitting at the beach, right? I must know what a beach is. I must know what the water looks like. I must know what sand looks like. I must know what the environment looks like. The sun, the sky, the pelicans, the people at the beach, possibly, the people in the water, you know, a pier, possibly. I mean, when you're imagining and visualizing a beach, it has objects, right? It has variables. And now I'm kind of categorizing this as like as a computer science angle. Like, it has objects and variables, and like you can imagine all these pieces inside of the imagination, every tiny puzzle to the grand scheme of things. And that's what makes the imagination, or the environment rather, right? Like, that's the environment that I'm picturing. And I can only picture this because I've observed these things before. My mind assigns meaning to each object and each variable. And it assigns its meaning based upon my perceived senses, my observations, my exposure. I feel like I went too deep into this. I need to think about this more some other time, not while I'm like doing one of these things, impromptu recordings. But it is a good question to ask, you know, is it possible to imagine something that you haven't observed before? But yeah, what was I talking about in the very beginning? Oh yeah, wanting. You know, if you wanted something, you would have it. I think it's a very simple way of putting things. And some people might be upset with the way I'm saying that, because a lot of people like to say, oh, I want to be rich. You know, and I believe, I truly believe it now after my lived experience. I truly believe that if you really wanted that, you would get it. You know, you'll eventually get it. I promise you guys, everything that you want, you'll eventually get it. You will get it. If you truly want it, you will get it. You don't need to overcomplicate it. You don't need to create like logistical maps and plans of how to do X and Y. You'll get it, man. You'll get it. And the things you don't have yet, you probably don't really want it that much. Just simple, man. You don't want it that much. There's millions of other ways you can explain this. Sure, but this simple angle, man, I promise you guys, I've fragmented my brain enough. I have made things complicated. Anyone that knows me tells me I do a great job at making things complicated. And I do. I do a very good job at making things complicated. Extremely good job. So take my advice that if you really want something, you will have it, man. You will have it. So many things in life come and go. So many things. It's crazy for me to say this as a 28-year-old, man. It just feels retarded even fucking saying this. But fuck, man, I don't know. I don't know how else I can broadcast to the world the things I've had and lost. Sometimes life feels like a movie. It is a movie. You could take that angle. You could. But, yeah. I don't know. I'm kind of happy I recorded this. I wish I recorded the previous 40 minutes that I was talking to myself. I was talking about some crazy AI shit. I was thinking, what was one thing I thought about was kind of cool? What did I think about? Fuck. What was my thought? It was some Peter Thiel ass shit that I thought about, but like, fuck, what was it? I can't remember. Anyway, guys, I'm probably gonna, I know I'm gonna make some big videos soon on this channel, but yeah, not right now. This is just an impromptu thing. I'm warming up still. I'm recalibrating my brain. I do believe, though, I feel like there's a crazy time skip or shift happening right now. Might just be me, though. I don't know. Anyway, thanks for watching. If you guys made it this far with my fucking sporadic flow of thoughts. Good night.